girls went to a conference with Jeffrey Sachs, you know, the economist.
Yeah.
And, you know, they were sitting there debating him. And after the conference was over, he took them out to lunch because they were talking about the problems of Africa. And they were on the same level, but importantly, they could talk about it from their own standpoint. And they were telling him, you know, this part of it you're thinking about wrong. Because when, you know, they were talking about subsistence farming. And these are girls for whom this is real. They've done it. They understand that. We have 3 girls last year who won a grant from the Clinton Global Fund. They are funding, they call it the Zawadi Junior. They are funding young women here in high school. And they got a grant from the Clinton Global Fund, and they went and they met President Clinton.
Wow.
And they spent the day with him and a group of other young people from the US. So they're getting the kind of exposure that I think is going to allow them to come back here and hold their own with the best of the global leaders around the world. They will be able to represent Kenya in a way that somebody who wouldn't have had that background couldn't do.
Just like your dad did back in the 50s, because obviously the leadership there knew that Kenya needed young, smart, brilliant, educated Africans.
Yeah.
And they helped, because I have uncles I know who benefited from the airlift.
Yeah.
Now, so far you have 18 in your program.
We have 18.
By next year, 120.
Right, correct.
What does 120 people do? How can they transform a country, in other words?
Well, you know, a couple of weeks ago, Ambassador Rannenberger had a reunion for the airlift alumni. And we were pulling this list together. And this list read like the who's who of Kenya. I had not really fully understood how much that first group of airlift students formed the backbone of the leadership of our country. You know, Professor Wangari Maathai is just one example. Josephat Karanja, who was the vice president, was another. You know, we have, you know, journalists. Philip Ochieng was one of the airlift alumni. And so, you know, many of our leaders, the people who then came back and shaped the new country, came out of that airlift. And I believe it was because of the kind of exposure that they had. It was because the kind of education that they had. And I think a very important piece of it is that when you're out there, you stop being a tribe, you're a Kenyan. And because they were able to interact with each other in a way where they learned about not just their own culture, but other cultures as well, that helped them to become the leaders that they were.
And 50 years later, these girls are going to be the new leaders.
These girls are going to be the new leaders, and our hope is that they will similarly look at the bigger picture of the country.
Yeah. Susan, I want to talk more about that because that's fascinating. And also, I'm sure there are a lot of girls out there who are saying, I can be part of this program. I want to be part of this program.
Absolutely.
So we'll give them more information. Also, what would TJ think? What would your dad think of what's... First, we'll take a break. Good grief. Shades of TJ. Wonderful, beautiful, smart, brilliant young lady. TJ's daughter has come of age, and she's helping young ladies the same way her dad was helping a young nation. Wow. This week is all about women. We're bringing the best of the best of the best. Don't even think of going away. Capital Talk is back in a moment. And welcome to Capital Talk. And welcome back to Capital Talk. All this week, we're celebrating Kenyan women, especially those who are giving back, making sure this country has a lot of hope, especially for the young girls. That's right, my guest today. I tell you, if this man was alive today, Thomas Joseph Mboya, he'd be proud of what his daughter's done. I'm sure wherever he is, he's looking down and saying, that's my girl. That's because she started a program about 7-8 years ago called Zawadi Africa. And she's promoting, helping young girls, brilliant young girls, take it to the next level. Free university education, as long as they come back. To date, they have 80 girls in the program. This year alone, 8 of them are graduating, 7 going back to grad school, 1 coming back home. So if you're looking for a brilliant young lady to employ, check it out. Zawadi Africa and Susan Mboya. So, does it make you really proud? Because I know your dad would really be proud. And, you know, none of us knew him. You probably were young when...
I was too young, yeah.
I was young too, but I remember vaguely about him.
Yeah.
But I wish we were around to know people like him.
I know. I have learned a lot about my father as I've grown older, and you know, I'm in awe. I really am. He was a man who was well ahead of his time. So when you say like your father, I feel a little bit. he was at another level, Jeff.
Yeah. It's incredible, huh?
He was incredible.
But you are too, because of the program you began. That's gutsy, first of all, how you began Zawadi Africa, and now it's growing. And I'm sure you know you have a real-time job. You have a real job that pays the bills.
Job, yes, that pays for Zawadi.
Yeah, right. But you still continue.
I do.
I mean, it's still close to your heart.
It's very close to my heart. I tell people, you know, Zawadi is a calling. It's a labor of love. You know, you wouldn't do this. It's my night job. You wouldn't do this if I didn't believe in it. Yeah. If I didn't believe that ultimately it's going to change things in Kenya. Yeah. I really do.
Roughly these days, how many applications are you getting per year, say?
We're getting 400 maybe, and out of those we'll send maybe 30 to 40 students a year. So it's roughly a 10% or less.
And this 400, I mean, we're talking the top of
We're talking the top of the top, yes, yes, yes. So very, very selective program. We now have a pretty selective, an interview process. So the girls come in, they go before a panel, and the panel interviews them, and based on that we'll decide who we're going to bring into the program to apply. So we'll eliminate quite a few at the application before they've even applied to colleges and universities in the US, because that application process is quite expensive as well, and we don't want everybody going through that. So it is quite a selective process.
And in the 80 girls so far you have in your program, you have never had a single problem, if you will. There's no
you know, crisis. We haven't had a crisis. I'd put it that. Not we've never had a problem. You'll always have a problem. We've never had a crisis. We've never had and I consider us to some degree fortunate, but I also think it's a function of the kind of girls, the caliber of girls that we bring into this program. They understand what they're there for. They understand how fortunate they are. And these girls are ambitious. They don't want to waste this opportunity. They recognize what an opportunity it is. And so they're not getting into a lot of the things that, you know, college kids get into. They're serious. We have a no drinking policy. You know, we discourage them from getting into alcohol and that kind of thing. I mean, I just believe that they're there, they need to